So endurance learning is four-step process. So let me talk about this. And the first step is anchor. The second step is content. The third step is application. And the fourth step is future use. I'm going to talk about each of these in more depth as we go here. And my colleague Rachel is going to put this handout that you see on the screen available for you to download. So this gives definitions to what each of these four steps are. And then there's a place to put notes, especially because these four steps are really, really important. And if you skip one of these steps, it will impact the entire learning experience. And so over on the right-hand column, you have a space, even though it's a PDF file, it's a fillable PDF. So you have a space to take notes just to kind of think through, as I'm talking here, think through what happens if you skip one of these steps. What happens to the learning experience? All right, so let's talk about each of these steps in order, and I'll get back to this idea of this magnet activity, magnet poetry activity. So the first step is an anchor step. So these are activities designed to tap into your learners' prior experiences or help set the stage for your content without overwhelming people first. And when I go out and I see when I deliver a train the trainer session or when I'm observing facilitators, this is the step that I most often see skipped. People start talking just about their content without thinking, how do I ease my learners into this? How do I tap into what they already know? And that's a problem for several reasons. And it's not just me saying this. It is years and years, decades and decades of learning science and learning models. So when we think of something called schema theory, this is a concept that's been around for a long, long time. And basically, it says that people don't learn by absorbing information raw. So that means that you can't just start talking about a new topic that people are unfamiliar with. They learn by fitting new information into what they already know. And this is and so this is the reason why I wanted to talk a little bit about and use that refrigerator magnet activity to get a feel for what's your process. And that is a way just to start to get people thinking about training design in general. Now we can start talking about some other stuff. The other thing, again, I talked about this at the very beginning of the session. If you're familiar with Robert Gagne's 9 events of learning, which is something that is really foundational to a lot of ways that the educational theory works, whether you're talking about professional development settings or you're talking about K-12 education settings. And I don't have time to go over in depth all of Robert Gagne's 9 events, but this first anchor activity, this first step, is really shorthand for Gagne's first 3 events of learning. And basically, Robert Gagne said the first 3 things you need to do is you need to get the attention of the learner. And I hope I did that with that magnet poetry activity. The second is that we want to inform the learner of the objective so they know what this is even about. And then the third thing is stimulate recall of prior learning. And that was the specific prompt that everyone had to think about as they were starting to put together their own sentences. Now, once we get past this first step, there are 3 more steps. And so that second step is content. This is where lots of training that I've attended over many, many years, this is where lots of training excels, right? So this is the idea of just sharing information or knowledge or experience while keeping people engaged. And the most frequent ways to do this, the most frequent ways that I've seen people do this is through lecture and PowerPoint. Now, if you take a look inside of the training activity cookbook, there's lots of other ways to deliver content, but even here, you can see that sometimes we just have to share information. Sharing information using lecture, using PowerPoint, in and of itself isn't bad. It's when that's the only thing that you do. That's where we start to find some problems. We start to see less engagement, and we certainly start to see less ability for people to remember and then to apply it after we're done, no matter how important our information is. This aligns with Gagne's 4th event of learning, which is present the content. Now, one of the things that I'm trying to do, and another thing that I took from the cookbook that I'm trying to do here, even though I'm talking about some of this information, I want to try to keep you engaged through note taking. And that's why that handout could be really helpful in terms of just help allowing you to process some of the things I'm talking about and keeping you focused. I didn't just say, here's a handout. I gave you a challenge. Think about each of these steps. What happens if one of these steps is missing? Obviously, if content is missing, for example, then it's really difficult. It could be a fun session, right? It could be an engaging session, but if we're not giving people content, how are we going to expect them to learn something new, or to be able to do something new or differently or better? All right, so we're halfway there. Step one, anchor activities like using that magnet poetry, but it doesn't have to be something that's that involved. It could be something quick as well. Step two is content. Step three is application. Application is really around giving people an opportunity to show us that they can use their new skills, their new knowledge, their new abilities, and it allows us to say, are they getting it? It seems like they're getting it. Or I don't know if they're getting it. Maybe we need to spend a little bit more time on this particular thing. Now, I started by saying one of the things that I see most commonly skipped is that anchor step. People just kind of launch into the content. This application is something else that I see skipped all too often. And this is one of those things where in train the trainer sessions, when I'm observing people delivering some training, and then when they're done, I'll ask them, how do you know that your learners got it? And the response that I will sometimes hear, and it's not a correct response, but it's a response that's kind of natural for people to give, is uh, people were making eye contact with me. Their heads were nodding, so I knew that they were getting it. That doesn't tell me that they're getting it. It doesn't even tell me that they're paying attention. Eye contact means that their eyes are on me. Nodding could be them thinking, I think I want to have pizza for dinner tonight, right? So we don't know what's going through people's minds. We need to give people an opportunity to share. So for you as facilitators, this could mean, or training designers, it could mean creating a small group conversation after we've presented some information. It could be a case study. It could be a role play. There's lots of different things. Again, going into the cookbook, there are lots of different ways that we can engage people through this application step. We don't want to skip it because then we don't know if people are getting it. And then finally, this is again, so the application step, when we think of Gagne's 9 events, this covers 4 of those. So it covers the idea of provide after we give people information, after we've gotten their attention, provide them some learning guidance and elicit some performance, some sort of performance from our learners to see if they get it. And then based on that performance, we can give feedback. We can assess that performance. We can say it was really good or wasn't, it really still needs to improve. This is an opportunity for people to apply or to practice their skills in an environment without any consequences. The training environment has no consequences. When we're out in the real world, there are consequences. And if people aren't able to do this because we haven't checked whether or not they can do this, there are some significant consequences out in the real world if people don't do things the way that they're being trained to do. Finally, the fourth step here is future use. And these are opportunities for learners to determine how they're going to use this information actually in the real world. This aligns with Robert Gagne's final step, which is enhance retention and transfer. It's really important because no matter how important we think our information is, maybe it's a new policy that people must follow. Maybe it's something that we just in our heads because we have so much experience. There's tons of experience on this webinar right now. Maybe because we have such good experience, we just expect people to really soak it in, right? It's really important stuff. It's important to us. It's important to them and their future, our learners. No matter how important it is, no matter how engaging it is, there is no study that exists that says that our learners are going to have memorized everything that we taught them when they leave our session. So the future use step is an opportunity to give people, could be a job aid, could be an action plan, it could be a checklist, it could be some sort of quick reference guide or other resource, something that people can refer to after the session in order to remember what they learned and perhaps how to do it, especially if they're not going to use it right away. So anchor, content, application, future use, other four steps. Now, let me